Alright guys, so back in a new tier list video. Today we will talk about the worst mistake that you could make in production or before even making your video game. So these are mistakes that you want to not happen to you. You want to try to avoid as much as possible, and you try, if already happened, to damage control as much as you can. The problem is gonna pop up. Like, you're gonna have a very bad production time, longer production time, wasting more budget. Usually you'll have worse technical issues and a worse game because of the lack of narrative design and pre-production character assets and stuff like that. So one of the worst things that you could do is pre-production, and in my opinion it ruined a lot of projects that I've seen before from like my friends and the community I've been in the game dev industry. So it might actually be very brutal to neglect a whole part of the whole production phase. Like, you have pre-production, production, and post-production. Neglecting any of these could be very brutal mistake that you cannot recover from usually. Neglecting narrative design. Again, some people commented, and yes, that's right, some games don't really need narrative design. Like, for example, Minecraft or Rocket League. These are games that are not really needing of narrative design, but again guys, these are very special cases, not a lot of games like this, and usually linear games goes with align with narrative design. And usually the best case scenario for you as an indie game dev is making, or a small team is making, some game that have some narrative in it. So for the games that have narrative design or need narrative design, I know some games don't need that, but usually neglecting that could ruin your whole world building, your whole like story arcs for the characters, for the story itself. There's no climax and stuff like that, which actually could be brutal for games like horror games or visual novel, for example. But for games like platformers, Metroidvania, it might be not as bad as like brutal. It might be very hard to like try to cover up. It will make the production time way bigger, because you're gonna need to write the story while you are making the game, for example making the NPCs and the dialogues and stuff like that. So I would say ignoring narrative design because of the differentiation between game genres, and some games not needing actually narrative design, it might be one of the very hard things to recover from. Scope creep. This is something that many people talked about in the industry. It's one of the most known things. In my opinion, if you do pre-production plan very well, you actually will not be able to scope creep, and it will reduce very drastically. But the idea is, what if it happened? Even with decent pre-production, sometimes very big MMORPG games could suffer from like stuff like scope creep. So usually you cannot avoid it at all times, especially if you do not have the experience or like worked or made a game like this genre before. Sometimes you face things like this, and scope creep in my opinion is one of the things that make people neglect the whole project, leave it, and actually the project dies and do not even see the day of the Steam library, for example, which is not just like making just a bad project, it's neglecting the project at all. So I would say scope creep, especially for games that usually get kickstarted and stuff like that, they go in even legal troubles and stuff. So I would say it's very brutal to go in a scope creep. Again guys, do your pre-production. We made a video about pre-production plan, have some bullet points about it. You need to understand what is pre-production plan so you don't usually face scope creep. Many developers and developers they don't know this information, because unfortunately they are very gatekept for some reason in the industry. Maybe there's just not enough people that are interested in talking about stuff like this. I'm trying to cover as much as I can of the things that I saw most indie small game dev are facing in their production in my videos. So try to watch as much as possible, try to get as much useful information as possible, just so you can make your dream video game actually comes alive and actually being tested. Even if it did not like succeed as you might think, it will be a very relieving thing to see your game actually being played even for a dozen of people. So no clear target audience. See, this thing is very tricky. Usually people want to make a video for a video game for everyone. So everyone wants everyone to play it, which it's not a true thing to happen. Like the people that play puzzle games, they do not play MMORPG games usually. They just play puzzle games, platformer games sometimes, and maybe linear games. You cannot force everyone to play your video game, so you need a target audience. Not having a target audience will not make you able to see what are the pros and cons in other games, what people actually like about these games, and what do they hate, so you avoid doing it in your project. So doing this could actually not like force you to leave on the project. You will finish the project if you had no target audience in mind, but when you go and publish the game, it will never have these same things. There is only one way, and some games went in such a thing, which is very heavy post-production. We're talking like, for example, Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk, they had a target audience. It's just like it was very buggy because they were like very small in production time, so they published it too early. It had a lot of bugs, but they did a very heavy lifting in post-production to fix these bugs. So you can make the same, a very very heavy post-production thing could save your game, but again, not the same as like publishing it with a target audience in mind. I would say it's very challenging to actually neglect this. It's something that you really want to keep in mind. Again, guys, we all want to do it as a hobby, but it is business and work. In the end, you need to do some marketing research. Poor project management. Okay, so this I actually either goes very hard or just moderate, because for solo indie devs, you are doing your project management yourself, so you are your project manager. For bigger teams, the bigger the teams it gets, the poor project management goes in difficulty. Usually people that are watching me right now are either solo devs or small teams, so I would say for solo devs it would go to moderate to not that bad actually, because you have most of your ideas are in mind. But for small teams it could be very challenging to go with poor project management. I would 100% recommend so you contact or someone learns actually how to project manage a video game, because it's very different from normal project management. Underestimating time and budget. This is for teams and solo devs. Again, you can make a game for free, but you're gonna need some, like if you want to make a very or a moderate a commercial game, a nice video game, you're gonna spend some money either on music, the capsule in Steam. You're gonna need to spend some money to make your video game. So underestimating the time and budget is one of the worst things that you could do. It sometimes costs people their whole video game, their whole production, just by doing this. So I would say it's one of the very hard things to recover from, because when the damage happens, you cannot recover from the damage after it happens. So I usually would say it's one of the very hard things to get back after like happens, and you 100% want to keep mind on that. I know many people think you can make a game for free fully, but if it's commercial, you will need like for translation, for music, for capsule art, you're gonna need a budget, and especially time. Time is very very important. You don't want to spend, whatever bigger projects you're making, you don't want to spend over 8 years. 8 years is too much, only if you're making some crazy shit, man. So usually for most indie devs, I would say 4 years. 8 years is just too much. Usually, only if you were like a bigger team and working on a very complex 3D game. Usually, I would recommend 4 years as max for 2D games. So, lack of communication teams or bad communication teams. See, so we're not even talking about like solo dev. This is something that happens a lot. It just needs for people to be more political in the gaming industry, because actually everyone comes from a creative mind and stuff like that. You need to be a bit political in some like decision makings and communicating with others. You try to keep it professional even if you want to make ties with them, like friendships and stuff like that. But having friends is actually gonna have problems in the end. Having coworkers, you're gonna face problems in the end. So you need to keep everything professional and political. It's not very one of the worst things that could happen, because especially if the team leader is a very good leader and have good leadership skills, usually it's not of the red alarms thing for a project to happen, but it's definitely make the environment toxic. And I would recommend you keeping an eye on this, because again, if you are working on a single project for 3 years, you want the environment and your co-workers to be a respectful, nice, safe environment. Over dependence on tech. So this usually goes for people that actually make their own tools and not use commercial tools, or use commercial tools that are known to have some errors or lack of actual features. So you depend on a tech and then it's broke mid-production. This is something that actually very frustrating and usually goes for the people that are working on the tech side, not arts side of the things, which they do have some pressure on, because you need to finish the usually most of the tech stuff before the art starts, so you can just implement the art. Usually sometimes they work in the same time. It differs from a pipeline to another pipeline, from a game company and a game company. So if you over depend on a tech and it's broke, you always have to have like a second plan in hand, or it would be very challenging to like escape or reduce the damages from over dependence on some techs, like your custom game engine or your custom tool. Lack of playtesting. Again, guys, you need to playtest your game, because if you did not and it sucked and you publish it to players, people gonna not love your game, not play it, you get negative reviews, the game will suck, no one want to play it anymore. So this is one of the worst things that you could do. Again, many people just want to make the video game, not make an actual fun video game. So usually lack of playtesting, no QA, it's usually just brutal and could ruin, even if you have the best technical game, the best systems, the best art. If your game sucks at playtesting, nobody would want to try a game that is not as playable. Overcomplicating core systems. So overcomplicated core systems is one of the things that I see people do. Like they are making a platformer games, but they do make an inventory system similar to Metroidvania games, which is like very overcomplicating stuff, because there is big differences, and sometimes people do it just because they want to experience with new things and tools and systems for the game. So it might be very challenging to go from this, but I would say it's not as familiar with teams as many people think. Usually it's just deleting or moderating the code, so I would say it's a very moderate thing to do. It's not as very challenging as like over dependence on tech or like no clear target audience. It's something that you want to keep in mind. Poor documentation. Again, if you are a team, do not usually go for solo devs. Only if it was a very big project for a big amount of years, you need the documentation so you can remember why you did this in the first year you made the game. But for very big teams, poor documentation could be very bad for interns that gonna come into your team, and they will face a lot of problems. They would need 3-4 months just to understand what are they doing, because there's a lot of codes and no documentation and stuff like that. So you want to keep this in mind. If you have a big team and want to accept interns, I would say it's not that bad of thing. Usually commenting code or making documentation just take a couple of months or something like that. Usually you can figure it out if you do not have a very complicated 3D game in just 1 month or 2. Copying trend blindly. A lot of people do it, especially people that are working on the mobile industry or like trying to publish games that are not very commercial to Steam, like things like a level of a game jam, and want to publish it in Steam, and they get faced by the reality. People just don't want to play a trend, they want to play an actual good game. I would say this, if you do it, you usually you cannot recover from it because the core idea is just like you're copying a trend. So you're not going to be able to recover unless you made another project. So I would say it's a very hard thing to recover from. Bad UI UX. Again, not many games have the best UI UX, but if it was just bad UI, it's not one of the worst things. But for some video games that rely heavily on UI and user experience, it gets very messy, like tactical games and stuff like that, or building games. So bad UI UX could go for platformer games, like not that bad, or Metroidvania maybe moderate, but for some types of games it just get brutal for sometimes because they rely heavily on UI. So I would put that in the middle. It's just a challenging thing, and usually, unfortunately, most people are not really familiar with UI and UX because most of devs come from either a background in art or a background in programming, so that's why they usually don't understand much of UI and UX design. Unpolished tutorials. So this is actually something that is, it's not brutal, but if you have a non-polished tutorial, and some players really get bored very easily, you will have a less median playtime in Steam, which is very bad for your marketing of your game. So you would want to keep them as engaged as possible of a time, like almost like a half an hour or an hour in gameplay. So that tutorial could make you have a very less median playtime. So you want to make your tutorial polished, and usually it's the same as the vertical slice and the demo that you publish. So I don't know why you don't have the time to polish something that you've been through multiple times. So yeah, I would say it's a challenging thing to recover from, but it's not the worst thing ever. It's not like neglecting pre-production. Ignoring marketing until launch. Again, guys, I did this mistake with my first game and it sucks. You should never do this. A good game will not get attention without marketing. Even if you make the best game ever, if you have no marketing, it's just nobody gonna know about it and nobody gonna play it. Don't do this. It's one of the worst decisions that you could do. It's brutal. It ruins the whole project. Messy project files. So for solo devs, it's not a very big problem as I seen, but for small teams it might be a bit challenging, but I would say moderate. It's more of a moderate thing. Usually small teams, if they worked on multiple projects, they are already used to their stupid file naming and not like the AAA industry standards and pipelines. So I would say it's a very moderate thing. It's not that serious of a thing that will ruin the whole project. But for bigger 3D games and bigger 3D projects, of course you would need more automation. You would need more documentation. This is the thing that goes for all industries, not just game industry. Over dependence on placeholders. Again, guys, it's not one of the most serious things, but again, don't forget your place. I've seen this multiple times. They make a very big game and they forget the placeholders, like they forget some enemy as a square or something like that. So you want to be, especially for now, because some people are using AI as a placeholder, so make sure that you remove it, because you would get in legal trouble because you did not disclose your game as an AI content generated. So you need to remove it. I've seen it a lot of times and they just go, oh no, we forget to add the sprite and need to do a patch. But again, because some people are using now AI, it would be a very something that you want to keep an eye on. So it's not that bad of a thing that happens. Usually it's people who try the game as the first it launch face already a lot of bugs. So yeah, ignoring accessibilities. Again, guys, the people that are gonna play your video game, some people want inverted controls, some people are colorblind, some people want languages, and some plays even on widescreen. It's weird. I know you think just developing a video game is just making a game. No, you need to make accessibility options for everyone. It's a if you neglect it, you will lose a lot of customer base. So it's a very hard thing to do. Again, inverted controls, like 35% of players, I think, till now they are using inverted controls. So it's not a thing that you want to neglect. So this is the list. Share your opinion with me in the comments. Definitely subscribe. We are trying to hit 1,000 subscribers, and definitely hit that bell button. Thanks for watching, and I'm gonna see you in the next episode.